Chapter 91. 91. The Three Demons of the Way of Devil, the Prelude to the Feast. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 91. The Three Demons of the Way of Devil, the Prelude to the Feast. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. In fact, in Lu Yuan's plan, he had thought that he could complete the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens of a spiritual route before Chinda made a move. However, he soon realized that things were not that simple. After the 5 spiritual roots of metal, wood, water, fire, and wind completed the foundation establishment through the way of the heavens, Lu Yuan realized that there were actually many restrictions if he wanted to complete the remaining 4: earth, lightning, yin, and yang. The first to bear the brunt was the cultivation techniques for the 3 spiritual roots of lightning, yin, and yang. Lu Yuan did not obtain them for the time being, so he naturally could not condense the corresponding heaven's spiritual roots. Secondly, although he had obtained the cultivation method of the earth's spiritual root, he did not have the conditions to cultivate this cultivation technique. Earth Spiritual Roots Cultivation Technique, Mountain River Array Diagram, Foundation Establishment Chapter. This was the cultivation technique that Lu Yuan had exchanged from the sect before he left the mountain. However, the Mountain River Medallion was a necessary condition for the cultivation of the Mountain River Array Diagram. Foundation Establishment Chapter. Therefore, Lu Yuan was thinking about how to find a Mountain River Medallion to satisfy the cultivation requirement. The solution he first thought of was to find a similar substitute from the palace, Mountain River Official Seal. The so-called Mountain River Official Seal was a product formed by condensing a portion of the power of mountains and rivers from the Great Xia Kingdom's Imperial Jade Seal. It could be considered a low-level version of the Mountain River Medallion. However, using the Mountain River Official Seal to replace the Mountain River Medallion was only Lu Yuan's backup plan. The solution he finally thought of was actually the Great Xia Kingdom's Imperial Jade Seal. After all, the heirloom seal's essence was the Mountain River Medallion. This was also the reason why Lu Yuan wanted to take the Imperial Jade Seal for himself when he first entered the Imperial Palace. However, Lu Yuan also knew that there was a high chance that he would not be able to keep this heirloom seal. Thus, his plan from the very beginning was to use this heirloom seal to exchange for an orthodox Mountain River Medallion from the hands of the Imperial Xia clan. At the very least, he had to exchange it for a first-grade official seal. However, Lu Yuan had never expected that he would not only exchange the orthodox Mountain River Medallion from Qin Yuanqing but also exchanged it for a Mountain River painting. Exchanging these 2 items at the same time was really beyond Lu Yuan's expectations. It was a huge surprise. However, although he had already gathered all the conditions to enter the Earth Spiritual Root Foundation establishment through the way of the heavens, before he could proceed with the Earth Spiritual Root Foundation establishment, Lu Yuan still needed to complete a prerequisite. That was to refine the Mountain River Medallion and the Mountain River painting. Only by refining these 2 magic items could Lu Yuan truly start cultivating the Mountain River Array Diagram. Once he did that, the Mountain River painting in his hand would be able to form a special small world. Although this small world was far from reaching the level of the legendary painting world. However, once Lu Yuan spread out this Mountain River painting, he would be able to form a special array of space around his body. Later on, by relying on the Mountain River Medallion, he would be able to control the changes in the environment within the mountain's array of space to a certain extent. It had reached the point where, I am the direction, I am good or bad. Controlling geomancy was only one aspect. When the Mountain River Medallion and the Mountain River painting were combined, there was actually another terrifying effect. That was, Lu Yuan could set up arrays in the Mountain River painting in advance. In this way, Lu Yuan was equivalent to carrying a mountain protecting array with him. This was equivalent to making up for the huge shortcoming of array masters who could only fight in places where they had set up their own array. After understanding this, Lu Yuan decisively began to refine the Mountain River Medallion and the Mountain River painting. According to Lu Yuan's judgment, he only needed about a year to perfectly refine these two magic items. At that time, he would be able to start cultivating the mountain river array diagram and start working on the foundation establishment stage of the Earth's spiritual root. Once he completed the foundation establishment of his Earth's spiritual root, the distance between him and the goal of forming a perfect golden core wouldn't be long. At the border of the Great Xia Kingdom, at the border of the 6 states. The so-called border of the 6 states was actually the border between the 5 countries controlled by the 5 righteous sects and the countries controlled by the 3 devilish sections. The reason why it was called the border of the 6 states was that the 3 devilish sects jointly controlled a large-scale empire called the country of Liang. However, it was different from the way the 5 righteous sects chose to control the mortal empires indirectly. The 3 devilish sects chose to directly control this mortal empire. Shuiyang sect would control the army and normal officials of the Liang Empire. Huanqi sect controlled all the temples and monks in Liang Empire. Shixian sect controlled all funerals in Liang Empire, including the disposal of corpses. Because the 3 sects directly controlled the empire, and the 3 devilish sects were very high profile. As a result, the Liang Empire emphasized the cruel laws of nature. Survival of the fittest. The people of the Liang Empire were not only ruthless to their own people, but they were even more ruthless to their enemies. In the imperial palace of the Liang Empire. At this moment, a lavish scene of debauchery was playing out in the imperial palace of Liang. Countless men and women dressed scantily and with exquisite makeup shuttled through the main hall of the imperial palace, serving the nobles in the palace with all their might. These nobles were divided into 3 distinct factions. One of them was the Shuiyang sect. They wore blood-red robes, had pale faces, and had an evil aura about them. Huanqi sect was also one of the factions involved. The demonic monks were wearing yellow frocks and had big bald heads, each hugging a male attendant wantonly. The last group was the Shixian sect. Each sect member wore a white mourning robe that was filled with a death aura. The Liang Empire was ruled by these 3 sections. However, unless absolutely necessary, the 3 sects would rarely gather like this. This was because the 3 sects were not of the same mind. The open and secret conflicts between them were not necessarily less than the 5 righteous sections. The only reason why they could gather so harmoniously was that the 3 sects now had a common goal or enemy. Just as the cultivators of the 3 sects indulged themselves, 3 figures slowly appeared at the hall's entrance. Seeing the 3 of them, everyone in the palace immediately stood up. "Welcome, young Lord/Buddha child/Daozi." After the 3 of them entered the main hall of the imperial palace, they instantly passed through the crowd and sat on the main seat of the main hall. They were Yang Xiujie, the young lord of the Shuiyang sect, Hang Lu, the Huanqi sect's Buddha child, and Fu Jiu, the wise child of the Shixian sect. Among the 3, Yang Xiujie, the young lord of Shuiyang sect, was at the pseudo-core stage. He was the strongest among the 3 and was currently ranked first on the mortal ranking. Next was Huanqi sect's Buddha child, Hang Lu, who was also at the pseudo-core stage and ranked second. The wise child of the Shixian sect, Fu Jiu, had the lowest cultivation level. He was only at the 9th level of the foundation establishment realm and ranked 6th on the mortal roll. The so-called pseudo-core stage was actually the core formation stage where one's spiritual roots were fused but had yet to form a golden core. Those who failed to form their core would remain at this stage forever. Those who successfully formed their core formation stage would condense their own gold cores. The 3 of them had the same status as the young sect leader in the 3 demonic sections. For the 3 of them to appear here at the same time, there was naturally something important to announce. After the 3 of them took their seats, the entire palace instantly fell silent. Yang Xiujie, the young lord of Shuiyang sect, looked around. Huanqi's Buddha child Hang Lu placed his palms together and recited Huanqi's Buddha Sutra with his eyes closed. The wise child of the Shixian sect, Fu Jiu, sat motionless on the chair like a corpse with a lifeless expression. Seeing that neither of them knew how to talk, Yang Xiujie could only speak up. He looked at the crowd below and said with a smile, "Everyone, our three devilish sects reached an important agreement a few days ago, and this agreement is that you no longer have to suppress yourselves and can go to the five righteous sects to kill as much as you want. A feast that belongs to everyone, it has finally begun." Hearing this, the entire palace burst into cheers. However, there was a hint of insanity mixed within the cheers. It was as if a group of hungry gluttons had gathered together to celebrate the upcoming feast. Chapter 92. 92. Those who meet the above criteria, step out. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 92. Those who meet the above criteria, step out. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. A year later, Great Xia Kingdom, Devil Slayers Division. Director, there is an urgent letter. Give it to me. Lu Yuan took the envelope from his subordinate and began to read it seriously. There wasn't much content in the letter, but the situation described made Lu Yuan frown. The letter described that the Great Liang Kingdom controlled by the three devilish sects had begun a large-scale invasion of the five righteous sects. In the letter, the Great Liang army was divided into three groups. The three devilish sects each led a group of troops and devil cultivators to attack the various countries. The Great Xia Kingdom, which was controlled by the Qinyan sect, had to face the entire army of Shuiyang sect. It could be considered a 1-on-1 battle between Shuiyang sect and Qinyan sect. Lu Yuan was actually not surprised that the Great Xia Kingdom would be involved in the conflict between cultivators. After all, no matter how significant the reason for the battle between the righteous and demonic paths was, ultimately, their reason for fighting was for more resources. Mortals were naturally within the scope of the resources they fought for. The appearance of this battle report meant that the Great Xia Kingdom would no longer be facing a pure mortal battle. Instead, it was a fierce battlefield between cultivators and mortals. Not long after Lu Yuan received the battle report, he immediately received an order from the sect. Although the order was brief, it was very serious. Lu Yuan was tasked to mobilize the practitioner in the Demon Slayers department to help the Great Xia Kingdom's army resist the attack of the devilish army. He was also told that the battlefield was not limited to the mortal army. It could even be said that the battlefield that Lu Yuan was about to participate in could be considered one of the less intense ones on the entire battlefield. The truly intense battlefield was actually the one at the Full Moon Mountain Range, which was located at the border of the 6 countries. This was the battlefield of both righteous and devil cultivators. Choosing the Full Moon Mountain Range as the location of the battle was a tacit agreement formed between the righteous and devilish sides over thousands of years. This was because only by fighting here could they avoid the battle between cultivators and affect the mortals on both sides. After all, be it the 5 righteous sects or the 3 devilish sects, they didn't want a situation where mortals died on a large scale. The reason why they would send out mortal armies to attack was not that the army had to do anything. They were sent as a signal. To let the mortals know that the country they were in would most likely change a new ruler. After all, the vast majority of mortals, especially those living in the 5 righteous sects, might not be able to come into contact with the cultivators above them even if they spent their entire lives. Naturally, they would not know that cultivators were their true rulers. To let the mortals know that their ruler had changed, starting a war between empires was undoubtedly the best way to inform them. Thus, the battle between mortal armies was more of a formality. This was because the true outcome of the battle would depend on the final outcome of the battle between the cultivators in the Full Moon Mountain Range. After Lu Yuan understood all this, he also more or less understood his position in this great war between the righteous and devilish path. The sect asked him to lead the practitioners to join the Great Xia Kingdom's army. On the surface, it was to let him join the battle directly. However, in reality, this was actually a form of protection for him. This was because the battlefield he was participating in was not the core battlefield of the righteous and devilish sides. Therefore, the enemies that would appear here would at most be cultivators at the foundation establishment stage. Compared to the Full Moon Mountain Range, which had elders at the core formation stage. The battlefield that Lu Yuan was going to was undoubtedly much safer. Naturally, it was a form of protection. Lu Yuan felt that the reason why he was able to get this good errand was because he had been able to do so many things. One reason was that he was the current secretary of the Devil Slayers division. The other reason was probably that his master Han Yuan Shan was protecting him. After all, with the addition of the elders, who were at the core formation stage, the battle between the righteous and devilish sects had officially begun. Judging from the previous battles between the righteous and devilish sides, foundation establishment cultivators were just cannon fodder in such battles. At this time, it was undoubtedly impossible for a foundation establishment cultivator like Lu Yuan to hide in his sect and escape from the battlefield. Only by carrying out special missions like what he was doing now could he truly stay away from the main battlefield. Such a job was certainly not easy to get. Han Yuanshan must have contributed a lot to it. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan's expression became complicated. Although his master was usually sharp-tongued and liked to mock him for no reason. However, in his heart, his master still took good care of him. Just as Lu Yuan was filled with emotions, Su Wan'er appeared. "Young master, all the practitioners have gathered." Lu Yuan was silent for a moment before nodding. "Let's go." "Yes." Devil Slayers Division, Main Hall. At this moment, in the main hall of the Devil Slayers Division, other than some practitioners who were on missions outside, the remaining practitioners from the headquarters had all gathered here. With the arrival of Lu Yuan and Su Wan'er, the practitioners said in unison, "We, the practitioners, pay our respects to Director Green Flame." Lu Yuan nodded and then stood in front of the practitioners. Looking at the black mass of hundreds of practitioners in front of him, Lu Yuan did not immediately tell them the reason for gathering them. Instead, he said indifferently, "Pass on my orders. Those who meet the above criteria shall step forward. Those with parents, step forward. Those with wives and children, step forward. The only son in the family, step forward. Those who have wives but no children, step forward. If both father and son are in the office, step forward. Brothers in the army, step forward." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, more than 200 practitioners walked out after some hesitation. This group of people made up 1/3 of the entire practitioner team. There were even 2 golden medallion practitioners among them, Shang Yun and Fang Ru. Lu Yuan looked at these people and said indifferently, "All of you, hand over your respective practitioner medallions." Hearing Lu Yuan's words, everyone who stepped out immediately panicked. Shang Yun looked at Lu Yuan and said anxiously, "Lord Green Flame, handing over the medallions means that we will be removed from our position as a practitioner. Did we do something that made you unhappy? My lord, why are you doing this to us?" "Shang Yun, I don't want to repeat myself." "Hand over the practitioner medallions," Lu Yuan replied indifferently. Seeing Lu Yuan being so unyielding, Shang Yun and Fang Ru hesitated for a moment before handing over their golden medallions. When even the practitioners with golden medallions were forced to hand over their practitioner medallions, what could practitioners like them, who were not gold medallions, do? Thus, in a moment of silence, Lu Yuan placed dozens of practitioners' medallions of various levels in front of him. Lu Yuan looked at the practitioners' medallions in front of him and suddenly waved his hand. In the next second, these medallions were turned into powder in the fierce green flames. Shang Yun and the others watched as their medallions disappeared in front of their eyes, and their faces revealed reluctant expressions. This was especially true for many people who had spent most of their lives in the Devil Slayers department. Without the position of practitioners, they did not know what they could do in the future. Therefore, in addition to the pain, their eyes were also filled with confusion. Lu Yuan looked at this group of people who had been stripped of their positions as practitioners and said calmly, "From today onwards, you have nothing to do with the Devil Slayers department. In the future, the Devil Slayers Division will not issue any more orders to you. All of you are free. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, everyone was not happy. Instead, they started crying. Although they had gained their freedom, they had lost their purpose for living. Even a great practitioner like Shang Yun couldn't help but cry. As for the practitioners who still retained their positions, they also looked sad, feeling as if they were grieving the death of their colleague. The atmosphere in the Devil Slayers Division instantly became extremely oppressive. Lu Yuan did not have any intention of comforting them. Instead, he gave his final order. Those who are not practitioners, leave quickly. You are no longer needed here. Shang Yun looked at the indifferent Lu Yuan and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he, who had lived there for most of his life, left the Devil Slayers Division with his wife, Fang Ru. However, his back looked much older. Looking at their colleague of many years being reduced to such a state, the golden-ranked great practitioner, lion-ape, and iron-ox, were about to say something when they were interrupted by Lu Yuan's gaze. Left with no choice, the lion-pe and iron-ox could only choose to shut up. After the 60.2 people left, Lu Yuan looked at the hall that had become much emptier and said coldly, "Everyone, before I tell you the reason for gathering all of you, I have to ask you a question. All of you, are you ready to face death?" Chapter 93. 93, Wishing everyone a prosperous immortal fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 93. Wishing everyone a prosperous immortal fate. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio, all of you, are you ready to face death? As soon as he said this, the practitioners present immediately fell silent. Having heard Lu Yuan's words now, coupled with his previous actions of driving away the other practitioners, his message was very clear. The practitioners present seemed to vaguely understand the reason why Lu Yuan drove those practitioners away. Lu Yuan was not chasing them away, but saving them. Due to the timing of the information, most of the practitioners were still unaware of the Liang Kingdom's attack. Although it was not a wise move to drive away a portion of his subordinates before the battle. However, Lu Yuan also had his own considerations. His thoughts were very simple. Since this was an insignificant battle, there was no need to sacrifice too many lives for it. That was right. The battle between the Great Liang Kingdom and the Great Xia Kingdom did not matter to Lu Yuan. This was because the only battle that could determine the final outcome was the battle between the cultivators in the Full Moon Mountain Range. No matter how intense the battle between mortals outside the Full Moon Mountain Range was, it had a limited impact on the overall situation. As the representative of the Qingyun sect in the mortal world, although Lu Yuan did not become the current commander of the Great Xia Kingdom's 3 armies, he was still a member of the Qingyun sect. However, the Devil Slayers Division's power was completely handed over to Lu Yuan. Although he could not decide the strategy of the entire Great Xia Kingdom's army, he could determine the future direction of the practitioners to a certain extent. It was exactly because he knew the nature of this battle. Therefore, Lu Yuan had never thought of risking his life with this group of people from the beginning. He didn't want to risk the life of the practitioners of the Demon Slayers Department. To summarize it in a single sentence, it was not worth it. However, since the other party had already come knocking on his door, Lu Yuan naturally could not do nothing. Although he had chased away Shang Yun and the others and had lost a portion of his combat strength. However, Lu Yuan felt that just this group of practitioners in front of him was enough to complete his subsequent arrangements. Facing Lu Yuan's interrogation, the practitioners looked at each other and gave their answers one after another. The gold-ranked great practitioner, lion-ape, walked out of the group and cupped his hands at Lu Yuan. The entire Devil Slayers Division is under the command of the director. Please tell us what we should do next. Lu Yuan first glanced at lion-ape, who had walked up to him, then at the people beside him who had the same determined expression. He nodded in his heart and thought, this morale, usable. Seeing this, Lu Yuan finally began to speak of his specific arrangements. Fellow colleagues, I have bad news to tell you. The news is that the Great Liang Kingdom has already sent 500,000 devilish armies to the borders of the Great Xia Kingdom. As soon as he said this, the practitioners who did not know the situation of the battle revealed a solemn expression. Even though there had been frequent friction between the Great Liang Kingdom and the Great Xia Kingdom over the years due to the border. However, in general, this kind of friction battle was mostly limited to the battles between the devilish path unaffiliated cultivators and the devil exorcists. Or perhaps it was because the scale of the battle was only 100 people, and it did not expand to the extent of an all-out attack. The last war between the two countries was about 300 years ago. 300 years was a long time for mortals. Even for most of the rogue cultivators, that was a very long time, enough for them to forget many things. Therefore, most of the people present had never experienced such a large-scale battle. The only person among them who had participated in such a battle was the 320-year-old Lion.Ape. In the last war between the two countries, Lion.Ape had only joined as an ordinary martial artist and did not participate in the core battlefield. Even so, Lion.Ape still remembered the scene of the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. Every time he thought about it, he would feel his heart palpitate. Because even he was not confident that he could survive such a large-scale battlefield. When he heard that the Great Liang Kingdom had once again waged war against the Great Xia Kingdom, Lion.Ape was more agitated than anyone else. He also understood what Lu Yuan meant by chasing away Shang Yun and the others. The director was saving their lives. The other practitioners also understood Lu Yuan's good intentions. Therefore, everyone looked at Lu Yuan with even more respect. A scholar would die for his confidant. The practitioners at present had such a feeling. Lu Yuan looked around. After seeing that everyone seemed to be mentally prepared, he continued, the 500,000-strong army of the Liang Kingdom will arrive at Moon Mountain Pass in a few days. At that time, all of you will have to join the battle against the Liang Kingdom's army. I'm sure everyone knows that this battle is no longer a simple battle between mortals. A battle that can get you practitioners involved must have the participation of devilish cultivators. Therefore, the danger of this battle is self-evident. Therefore, before we set off, I have a few things to warn everyone. First, all practitioners under this division only need to listen to my orders. We don't need to be controlled by others. Second, after receiving my military orders, all of you, practitioners, must complete them unconditionally. Those who disobey the military orders will be killed without mercy. Third, all practitioners are not allowed to use the war to harm civilians. Those who are found to do so will be killed without mercy. The two consecutive words of "killed without mercy" immediately filled the Devil Slayers department with strong killing intent. This also made many practitioners who had never experienced the battlefield begin to understand the meaning of the word, war. One should not think that fighting an army was the same as fighting devils. There was actually a fundamental difference between the two. Although the practitioners of the Devil Slayers division had experienced many battles with devil and devilish cultivators, they were still in the midst of fighting. However, they had never experienced a battle involving hundreds of thousands of people. Unlike Lu Yuan, who was a foundation establishment cultivator. Most of the practitioners at present were only at the Qi cultivation stage. Although their battle prowess was stronger than ordinary people, it was not to the point where they could fight 10,000 people. Not to mention that many of the generals in the army were also comparable to the Qi refinement realm in terms of strength. Practitioners present. With the addition of well-trained soldiers, it was not strange for a practitioner to die on the battlefield once they were surrounded. Even if it was a foundation establishment cultivator, if they were surrounded by tens of thousands of soldiers and matched with a few powerful generals, they would not be able to escape. In the end, being beaten to death was not something unimaginable. In the last war between the two countries, there had been cases of foundation establishment cultivators dying. Thus, even Lu Yuan could not let his guard down in this battle. Otherwise, it was very likely that they would fail miserably. Lu Yuan looked at the practitioners present and sighed in his heart. After this battle, who knew how many people would be lucky enough to survive? Not to mention them, even the Qingyun sect cultivators might not be able to survive this great battle between the righteous and devilish sections. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan once again felt the cruelty of the immortal cultivation world. They were a group of self-proclaimed cultivators who pursued immortality. In the end, how many people could obtain true immortality? After sighing with emotion, Lu Yuan looked at the practitioners and said his last words. Fellow colleagues, I won't say anything else. I wish everyone a prosperous immortal fate. Now, let's go. Following the appearance of the Liang Kingdom's army, the Great Xia Kingdom's army gathered. A new round of war between the righteous and devilish sides had officially begun. Chapter 94. 94, the so-called immortal, one mountain, and you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 94. The so-called immortal, one mountain and one man, one, translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. Although Lu Yuan said that everyone should set off now. However, the deployment of a battlefield was definitely not something that Lu Yuan could end with a single sentence. Tactical arrangements, logistics, defense line setup. It would take a certain amount of time to complete all these. Therefore, after this gathering ended, the practitioners of the Devil Slayers division still had about half a day of free time. Using this half a day, they could do the final aftermath. After all, although Lu Yuan had driven away those practitioners who still had families, it was still a profession that was constantly on the line between life and death. Every practitioner more or less had their own spiritual harbor to relieve the pressure of life and death. Grand Xia Imperial Capital, Xiqing District. Dang, dang, dang. Master Iron.ox, is my hoe done? Alright, alright. Iron.ox replied as he placed the hoe into the water to cool down. As the red-hot iron faded away, a brand-new hoe appeared in front of the farmer. The farmer took the brand-new hoe with a face filled with joy. This was because the new hoe looked very tough and durable. Holding his new hoe, the farmer said gratefully, Master Iron.ox, your craftsmanship is really amazing. The things in your blacksmith shop in the city are of the best quality and the prices are the most reasonable. Faced with the farmer's praise, Iron.ox rubbed his head and smiled foolishly. Looking at the simple and honest Iron.ox, the farmer seemed to have thought of something and said jokingly, Master Iron Bull, I see that you're not young anymore. Why don't you find a wife to live with? With your conditions, you should be able to find a good wife in the city. Faced with this question, Iron Ox instantly became shy. Then, he quietly turned his head and looked in a certain direction opposite the shop. Seeing this, the farmer immediately looked over. What entered the farmer's eyes was a middle-aged woman with a gentle temperament. Meanwhile, the woman was taking care of her child while running her tofu business. Seeing Iron.ox staring at her, the farmer seemed to understand something and said with a strange smile, I was wondering why Master Iron.ox didn't find a wife. It turns out that you already have someone you like. But I heard that Madame Gon's husband died a few years ago. Now, she has a family and runs a shop alone to raise her children. Master Iron Bull, if you take a fancy to her, you have to hurry up. After all, a widow has a lot of trouble in front of her. With Master Iron.ox's introverted personality, if you're slow, she might remarry to someone else. Faced with the farmer's teasing, Iron.ox blushed and did not say anything. At the same time, the young woman surnamed Gon, who was running a tofu stall across from him, seemed to have noticed Iron.ox's gaze and subconsciously looked up at him. In an instant, their eyes met. However, after their eyes met, they quickly looked away. Iron.ox lowered his head and picked up the sledgehammer in his hand. He started to hammer the refined iron that did not need to be hammered. The woman lowered her head and tidied up the tofu stall that didn't need to be tidied up. The more they tried to cover up, the more obvious their actions were. Even an uneducated farmer could see that they seemed to have some feelings for each other. At the thought of this, the farmer's face immediately revealed an amused smile. Then, he carried his new hoe and said, "Ha ha ha, so Master Iron Ox isn't as honest as I thought. Hurry up, hurry up. I still hope to be able to attend your wedding one day." After teasing him, the farmer left with his hoe. In the following period of time, Iron Ox forged some ironware and handed it to the customers who had previously ordered them. At sunset, Iron Ox looked at the streets that had gradually become sparse, and his eyes gradually became blurred. A moment later, Iron Ox walked out of the blacksmith shop and closed the door. On the door of the shop, there was a sign that said, "I'm out on business." However, just as Iron Ox was about to leave the shop and head to the Devil Slayer's department, a little girl tugged at his trousers. Iron Ox lowered his head and saw a cute little girl holding him in one hand and holding a bowl of tofu pudding in the other. She was smiling at him. Under Iron Ox's puzzled gaze, the little girl smiled and said, "Uncle Iron Ox, this is the tofu pudding I made for you. Mom said that she wanted to try selling this in the future, so she asked me to bring it to Uncle Iron Ox to try. Mom also said that Iron Ox is an honest person. If it's delicious, you will say it is delicious. If it's not delicious, you will say that it is not delicious. Uncle won't lie, so it's most suitable for you to try it." Hearing this, Iron Ox raised his head and looked across. The woman seemed to be a little embarrassed. Not only did she look away, but her hands were also fiddling with his hair. It was very interesting. Iron Ox naturally wouldn't reject the beauty's good intentions. He bent down to pick up the tofu pudding in the little girl's hand and swallowed it in no time. Looking at the bowl of steaming hot tofu pudding, which was eaten by Iron Ox in a big mouthful, the little girl was dumbfounded. With such a big appetite, how many children could he eat in one meal? After finishing the bowl of tofu pudding, Iron Ox opened his mouth. "Very, very good. It's delicious." Hearing Iron Bull's stuttering voice, the little girl jumped up happily. If Uncle Iron Ox says it's delicious, it means that Mom's cooking is really delicious. "Mom, did you hear that? Uncle Iron Ox praised your cooking." After hearing her daughter's words, the woman finally found a reason to come over. She left her tofu stall and walked to Iron Ox. "It's just a child's joke. Iron Ox, don't take it seriously. I learned this from my next-door grandmother. It's my first time making it. There should be a lot of shortcomings in it." As she spoke, the young woman shyly looked Iron Ox. "Tell me the truth. What I did, is it really delicious?" At this moment, the young woman surnamed Gon had a peach blossom face and a seductive look in her eyes. Even Iron Ox, who had dominated Drunken Cloud Village for many years, felt that he couldn't take it anymore. Not only was his face as red as a monkey's butt, but his body was also smoking. He couldn't say anything for a long time. "Mom, look, Uncle Iron Ox has smoke coming out of him." Such an interesting scene immediately caused the woman surnamed Gon to cover her mouth and chuckle. Just as Iron Ox was about to say something, he suddenly saw 3 fireworks rising in the sky outside the city. Looking at the rising fireworks, the silly smile on Iron Ox's face gradually faded, replaced by an indescribable determination. Noticing the change in Iron Ox's expression, the young woman seemed to have sensed something and asked with concern, "Iron Ox, what's the matter?" Iron Ox looked at her and said after a moment of silence, "Yes." As he left, Iron Ox raised the empty bowl in his hand and said, "It's delicious. I hope I can eat it again when I come back." Hearing this, the young woman stroked her hair behind her ears and gently said, "Okay, I'll make some more for you when you come back." "All right." As soon as he finished speaking, Iron Ox strode out of the city. Looking at Iron Ox's back, for some reason, Dawn felt a sense of oppression. It was as if she would never have the chance to say something if she didn't say it now. However, after opening her mouth a few times, she still could not say anything to make him stay. She could only watch helplessly as Iron Ox disappeared from her sight. Chapter 95. 95, The So-Called Immortal, One Mountain, and you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 95. The So-Called Immortal, One Mountain and One Man, 2, Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio at the same time as Iron Ox was heading to the assembly point outside the city. Many people in the imperial capital also left their residences and walked toward the assembly point outside the city. Some of these people were storytellers who told stories in restaurants. Some were vendors selling candied haws by the roadside. Some of them were poor scholars who had a bookstore business. Although they have various identities, these people had one thing in common. They were all practitioners of the Devil Slayers division. The so-called practitioners were not cold machines, nor were they dogs raised in the mortal world. They were a group of living people, a group of people with their own lives, their own emotions. Living people. In a corner of an alley in the imperial capital. Lord Lion.Ape, we should leave. Hearing his subordinate's words, Lion.Ape, who was feeding stray cats, slowly stood up. When the stray cats saw Lion.Ape stand up, they moved forward intimately and rubbed against his pants. Although he was a little reluctant, Lion.Ape still softly pushed them away with his feet. Then, he led his subordinates toward the assembly point outside the city. At the headquarters of the Devil Slayers division. Young Master, the signal to assemble has been sent out. We should also set off. Lu Yuan, who was sitting in the courtyard drinking tea, spoke as he looked at Su Wanner, who was standing in front of him. Wanner, our celestial cultivation. What exactly do you think we are cultivating? After a moment of silence, Su Wanner gave her answer. Reporting to young master, I feel that this so-called celestial cultivation is naturally to cultivate for freedom and longevity. The only way we can transcend the mortal world is by becoming immortal, so we don't have to live a mediocre life like the common people. Su Wanner thought that her answer was very good. But who knew that Lu Yuan would smile and shake his head after hearing that? Wanner, you've only cultivated for a few years. How did you get infected with the arrogance of other cultivators? Lu Yuan stretched and stood up. He looked at the sunset in the sky and said with a hint of laughter, many cultivators think that after they have gained some ability, they can look down on the common people who do not have cultivation. Not only that, but they also think that they can go against those superior cultivators who neglected them. Of course, there are many cultivators who always say, going against the heavens, as if they can instantly widen the gap between themselves and the rest of the world as long as they say it. To explain it in my hometown's language, these people are not immortals at all. They're just a bunch of people who like to play with double standards. Below me, there is a strict hierarchy. Above me, all living beings are equal. This is the bad habit of those celestial cultivators. Lu Yuan then said to Su Wanner in a serious tone, Wanner, remember this. Cultivators of our generation cultivate freedom. It allows us to do what we think is right. Cultivating longevity also gives us more time to do what we like. I don't want you to be like those old fellows, cultivating and cultivating until you become a piece of wood. Immortals, immortals, a mountain and a pair of people. We are immortals, but we are also humans. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Su Wanner seemed to have understood something. Then, she looked at Lu Yuan and asked curiously, then did you think it was right for you to chase practitioner Shang and the others away? What's wrong? Do you have a different opinion? Not really. I just feel that perhaps only someone like you, young master, would be able to do such a thing. After all, I heard from practitioner Shang and the others that the previous secretary of the Devil Slayers division had never treated them like humans. Naturally, he would not care about their lives. Those people were in the celestial sect, and the situation was similar to that of Practitioner Shang and the other people in the Devil Slayers division. But after coming here, they all acted so arrogantly. Perhaps this is the double standard you mentioned, young master. You understand quite quickly. That's right, this is the double standard I just told you about. Let me teach you another principle: don't do unto others what you don't want done unto you. Don't force others to do things that you can't even do yourself. This battle is nothing more than a show where the higher-ups fight over pastries. Even if ants like us are injured or killed, it won't affect the overall situation. If that's the case, then I naturally don't want to see too many people lose their lives for nothing. I will save as many lives as I can. As Lu Yuan spoke, he realized that Su Wan'er suddenly smiled. This smile made him very confused. Wan'er, is there anything funny about what I said? Su Wan'er waved her hand and looked at Lu Yuan teasingly. Young master, you've misunderstood me. I'm laughing not because of what you just said, but because of something else. Oh. What is it? Su Wan'er suddenly stepped forward and said gently, Young master, may I ask whether your previous trip to Drunken Cloud Brothel is considered a part of your cultivation of freedom? After all, I have heard from Practitioner Shang that you are interested in the twin courtesans of Drunken Cloud Brothel. He said you are full of praise for them. Hearing this, Lu Yuan was dumbfounded on the spot. Fuck, aren't we talking about the true meaning of celestial cultivation? Why are you suddenly talking about this matter? The reason I said those words just now was to find an opportunity to give you a wave of ideology education and change your old mindset. I didn't mean for you to seize the opportunity to backstab me. Su Wan'er looked at Lu Yuan's stunned expression and suddenly thought of something. She blushed and said, actually, if young master wants to, I, Wan'er, might not be inferior to those courtesans. As she spoke, she even boldly used her fingertips to scratch the back of Lu Yuan's hand, teasing him to the extreme. However, before Lu Yuan could respond, Su Wan'er ran out hurriedly. Lu Yuan was left standing on the spot with a dumbfounded expression. After Su Wan'er left, Lu Yuan finally realized. Was he just teased by a maid? After being stunned for a moment, Lu Yuan smiled and shook his head. It seems like this maid of his still lacked discipline. As of now, she already dares to tease him and directly challenge his weaknesses. If this continued, what would happen in the future? What do you mean by going to Drunken Cloud Brothel is considered a part of my celestial cultivation? Would anyone go to a brothel to cultivate? Anyway, I go. Only occasionally. After laughing, Lu Yuan stood up and walked out the door. After all, he had made all the necessary preparations. It was time for him to head to the front line. He wanted to see what kind of confidence the devilish army of the Liang Kingdom had to come to the Great Xia Kingdom and behave atrociously. Did they really think that the Qingyun sect did not exist? At Great Xia Kingdom, Moon Mountain Pass. Kill. A soldier of the Great Xia Kingdom slashed at the fiendish demon that had rushed up the city wall. However, to his surprise, after the saber landed on the half-human half-dog demon, it did not damage it. Instead, it caused a crack to appear on the blade. It was as if the saber was not slashing at a body of flesh and blood, but at refined iron. Looking at the crack on his blade, the soldier's face was filled with despair. How could he be a match for this demon who had such a monstrous body? At the same time, the demonic soldier who had climbed up the city wall had already turned to look at him. After revealing a terrifying smile, he approached him step by step. The same scene was happening at other positions of the city wall. Hundreds of canine demons had already climbed up the city wall and started to slaughter the surrounding soldiers. Looking at this scene, the soldiers' eyes were filled with hopelessness. How could a normal person be a match for a demon? Just as the Great Xia Kingdom soldier thought that everything was over, several green fireballs fell from the sky and struck the demons. Amidst screams, the previously arrogant demons instantly turned into charred corpses. The soldiers of the great Xia kingdom who had escaped death raised their heads in shock. In the sky above the city wall, a figure wearing a white mask and flying on a sword appeared out of nowhere. Below this figure, there were a large number of people wearing similar masks. The soldiers of the great Xia kingdom were no strangers to these people. They were the great Xia kingdom's devil-slaying practitioners. Looking at the figure standing on the sword above them, countless soldiers of the great Xia kingdom cried tears of joy. They had been waiting for reinforcements for a long time. And it was finally here. Lu Yuan looked at the bloody scene below, his eyes turning cold. Go, kill them all. Roger. After receiving Lu Yuan's order, countless practitioners rushed up the city wall and began to fight fiercely with those fiendish demons. Although Lu Yuan's green flame had already killed most of the demons that had climbed the city wall, there were still many demons that were charging toward the city wall without fear of death. However, these previously arrogant demons became weak after encountering the devil-slaying practitioners and were easily killed by them. What a joke! In terms of war, the practitioners were third-rate. But when it came to slaying demons, they were first-rate. Chapter 96. 96, Something's Wrong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 96. Something's Wrong. Translator. Nyo I.bo Studio Editor. Nyo I.bo Studio, kill them. With the appearance of a new force of devil-slaying practitioners, the morale of all the soldiers in Moon Mountain Pass instantly soared. Under the attack of the blood slaves of the Shuang sect, the city walls of Moonlight Mountain were in danger. This was because these so-called blood slaves not only had almost invulnerable bodies, but they also had the means to replenish their vitality and recover from injuries by drinking the blood of their enemies. Not to mention that a single blood slave was comparable to a level 3 Qi cultivation stage or a martial artist with 30 years of cultivation. Such a monster was naturally not something that ordinary soldiers could fight against. Once hundreds of blood slaves charged at the same time and on top of their fearlessness to death, it would not be difficult for them to charge up the city wall of Moon Mountain Pass. After all, most of the soldiers guarding the city were just ordinary people and lacked effective means to fight against demons. However, just because ordinary people could not deal with these blood slaves did not mean that practitioners could not. Although the blood slaves were powerful and fearless, they had a fatal weakness. That was that the bodies of these blood slaves had very low resistance to spells and divine ability. This was because the bodies of these fellows were actually a special product formed by combining the bodies of animals and humans by the cultivators of Shuang sect. This also caused the spiritual energy in their bodies to be chaotic. As long as an external force intervened, the fragile spiritual energy balance in their bodies would be instantly broken. Although the cultivation of the practitioners was not high, they were all people who had experienced hundreds of battles. After a few simple trials, they found the weakness of the blood slaves and quickly came up with a way to quickly kill them. After the problem of the blood slaves was resolved by the practitioners, the soldiers of Moon Mountain Pass used the advantage of the city wall and quickly drove the other soldiers of the Liang Kingdom off the city wall. Seeing that this siege had failed, the cultivators of Shuang sect behind them did not choose to continue the attack. Instead, they blew the horn to signal their retreat. Not long after, the black mass of people instantly retreated from the city wall. Seeing that the enemy had finally retreated, the soldiers who had survived the disaster cheered. This feeling of being surrounded by danger a second ago and escaping death in the next second. It was not exaggerated to say that it was of great sorrow and joy. Such a strong change in emotions caused many soldiers who were already tense and only supported by their will to instantly collapse to the ground. Many of them even fainted on the spot. In response, Lu Yuan also sent out a portion of practitioners with healing abilities to help the guards of Moon Mountain Pass and treat them. Not long after Lu Yuan arrived at Moon Mountain Pass, a messenger came from the military camp. "May I ask if you are Director Green Flame?" "Yes, I am." Lu Yuan nodded. Director Green Flame, the general heard that you are here and has been waiting for you in the camp for a long time. Please come with me. Hearing this, Lu Yuan brought Su Wanner, Lion.Ape and Iron.Ox and went along with the messenger to the main camp of the guards. As for the other practitioners, they dispersed on the spot to see if there was anything that needed their help. Not long after, Lu Yuan and the others arrived at the tent and saw the general of Moonlight Mountain, Zheng Luan. I, Zheng Luan, pay my respects to Director Green Flame. No need to be so polite. Tell me, why did you call me over? Seeing Lu Yuan being so direct, Zheng Luan did not bother with the formalities. He started to talk about the situation at Moon Mountain Pass and the problems they were currently facing. Lord Green Flame, to be honest, there are already 500,000 soldiers of the Liang Kingdom gathered outside the pass. Among them, 5,000 are blood slaves similar to the ones you encountered on the city wall. These blood slaves are extremely powerful and invulnerable. Ordinary soldiers are no match for them. Right now, only a few centurions and martial arts heroes in our army can fight against these blood slaves. It is also because of these people that we are able to hold on until today. Actually, if that's all, I'm confident that I can keep these guys outside the pass. But these animals from the Liang Kingdom don't care about martial ethics. They rely on the high mobility of the blood slaves and have already scattered nearly 1,000 blood slaves into the borders of Great Xia Kingdom. They are not attacking the surrounding towns either. They are focusing on attacking our supply routes and obstructing our logistics. Under such circumstances, the food reserves in Moon Mountain Pass can only last the soldiers for another half a month. After half a month, we will face a situation where we will run out of food. Therefore, I hope that you can send some practitioners to deal with the blood slaves who have entered our kingdom's borders to ensure that the food for the soldiers can be delivered smoothly. Hearing Zheng Luan's words, Lu Yuan did not give an immediate reply. Instead, he looked at the map below and fell into deep thought. Seeing Lu Yuan looking at the map, Zheng Luan was puzzled. He did not know why Lu Yuan kept staring at the map. Could it be that there was something on the map that he had not discovered? Lu Yuan tapped his fingers on the table as he pondered. A moment later, Lu Yuan suddenly asked, General Zheng, do you think the target of these blood slaves of the Liang Kingdom? Is it really just your food supply routes? Zheng Luan was stunned momentarily before carefully looking at the map. As he stared at the map, Zheng Luan's expression instantly changed. He suddenly realized that the places marked on the map as being attacked almost formed a circle, surrounding the entire Moon Mountain Pass. The so-dot called Moon Mountain Pass was actually a special checkpoint stuck between two peaks. On both sides of the checkpoint were huge mountains that reached into the clouds. It was difficult for ordinary people to cross. However, the mountains on both sides that were natural barriers for ordinary people were not for cultivators. If the Liang Kingdom really wanted to make a move against the Great Xia Kingdom, they only need to send out a few foundation establishment stage cultivators who could fly directly over the mountain ranges on both sides and would be very difficult to stop. If the purpose of these blood slaves was to attract the attention of the guards of Moon Mountain Pass so that the devil cultivators could better enter the back of Moon Mountain Pass, this would undoubtedly surround them. Once such an encirclement was formed, the 300,000 soldiers of the Great Xia Kingdom in the mountain pass would be doomed. Thinking of this, Zheng Luan instantly felt a chill run down his spine. No wonder the intensity of the recent siege by the Liang Kingdom was much smaller than a few days ago. So this group of people actually wanted to make them an easy target. If that was the case, it would be equivalent to a battle to the death. Since the founding of the Great Xia Kingdom, such a situation had never happened before. Although the two countries had conflicts, they were still restrained. However, the current situation was clearly different from before. These people of the Liang Kingdom really wanted to take over the entire Great Xia Kingdom. And it had to be the three devilish sects behind them that gave them the courage for them to dare do so. Lu Yuan even felt that the ambition of the three devilish sects might not be limited to this. If Lu Yuan was right, there should be quite a number of foundation establishment stage cultivators within the army of the Liang Kingdom. Because only foundation establishment stage cultivators could ride a flying sword. The more Lu Yuan thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. This was because the intensity of this battle was completely different from what he had imagined. How was this a battle between mortals? It seemed to be developing in the direction of a battle between cultivators. Chapter 97. 97. Prepare for the worst. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 97. Prepare for the worst. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio. Moon Mountain Pass, Liang Kingdom Army Camp. Just as Lu Yuan had predicted, there were quite a number of foundation establishment stage cultivators gathered in the camp of the Liang Kingdom. This time, the commander of the Liang Kingdom's army was a cultivator of the Shuiyang sect at cultivation level 7 of the foundation establishment stage. Zhuang Yangbing. In addition, this person was also one of the direct disciples of the Shuiyang sect. He was ranked 15th on the mortal rank and his strength far exceeded that of ordinary foundation establishment stage cultivators. Senior Brother Zhuang, why do you think the people of the Qinyan sect are so stupid? Don't tell me they still think that the current situation is the same as 300 years ago, that it's just a simple confrontation between the righteous and the devilish. Zhuang Yangbing was hugging a beautiful maid as he sipped from the wine glass in his hand. However, what was stored in this wine cup was not fragrant wine. Instead, it was fresh blood that emitted a strong smell. After drinking a mouthful of blood, Zhuang Yangbing smiled and replied, "Actually, it's not that the Qinyan sect is stupid. They just didn't expect us to use the mortal empire as a breakthrough point. Looking at the previous battles between the righteous and the devilish, we rarely attacked mortal empires. After all, if a large number of ordinary people are involved in the battle, it will definitely have a certain impact on our future gains when we take over the righteous sect's territories." However, that was then and this is now. After realizing that it would be very difficult to break through the 5 righteous sects, the elders in the sect gradually changed their minds. After all, only when we have it will be real. Why should we protect what we don't have yet? You have to know that we devilish way cultivators are different from those righteous way cultivators. Death and slaughter will only make us grow faster. No matter how weak ordinary people are, they can still become the materials for us to refine blood slaves and strengthen our powers. Thus, plundering the mortals of the great Xia kingdom and nurturing the war with war has become the core of our plan this time. Furthermore, the inner sect elders have given me the full authority to carry out this plan freely. To successfully carry out my plan, I pretended to besiege Moon Mountain Pass. The goal is to make them think that my target is the grains transport route. Because only in this way will the Qinyan sect dispatch the cultivators in the town to defend the grain route. However, they would never have thought that I only had one target from the start. And that was the densely populated towns within the great Xia kingdom. I think this deceit act trick is flawless. After all, although the Qinyan sect self-proclaimed themselves to be righteous people, their attitude towards mortals is the same as us, the devilish people. They treat them as cattle and sheep that are raised in captivity. Why would they care about the lives of these mortals? In this way, they will definitely be caught off guard by the sneak attack this time. When the time comes, the situation here might even affect the full Moon Mountain range, causing the Qinyan sect cultivators to have no choice but to focus a portion of their energy in the great Xia kingdom. Who knows, this small change might even become the straw that will crush the Qinyan sect in the end. Hearing Zhuang Yangbing's words, the 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators in the camp burst into laughter. 10 foundation establishment stage devilish way cultivators, especially those who were prepared to go all out, quietly entered the great Xia kingdom. Without a doubt, it would cause great trouble for the great Xia kingdom. The reason Zhuang Yangbing did not send these 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators to the main battlefield to break through the Moon Mountain Pass was that a place like Moon Mountain Pass usually had a defensive array. Once the Moon Mountain Pass was about to be broken, the defensive array would be instantly activated. The defensive power of this array was so strong that even core formation stage cultivators would not be able to break through it easily. Thus, to bypass the Moon Mountain Pass, cut off the supplies within the Moon Mountain Pass, and plunder the population of the Great Xia Kingdom in large numbers was their goal this time. Zhuang Yangbing felt his plan was not only perfect, but it was also very feasible. Thinking of this, Zhuang Yangbing raised his glass high. All senior brothers, I wish you all a safe journey. But before we act, I still have something to say. I have a cautious personality and like to make backup plans for everything. Therefore, before you leave, I still have a few things to tell you. Then, Zhuang Yangbing told them everything he had planned as a backup. After hearing this, all the cultivators present were shocked. One of the cultivators could not help but say, Senior Brother Zhuang, do we have to be so careful here? I feel that our plan is already perfect. The Qin sect definitely won't find out. Is there a need to go through so much trouble? Zhuang Yangbing shook his head. Bove he looked at the cultivator in front of him and asked, Junior Brotherly, do you know why I became a successor disciple of the sect and ranked 15th on the mortal rank? The cultivatorly thought for a moment and said, it should be because senior brother has an incomparably vicious heart, a said extinct trickery and an outstanding cultivation talent. Zhuang Yangbing shook his head again. Junior Brotherly, what you said is just one of my many strengths. My greatest strength is actually my stable personality. Because I always plan for the worst and respond to it. Doing things like this is the real reason why I was able to advance all the way and reach the 15th place on the mortal rank. Alright, just remember what I just said. It's best if there are no accidents. Even if there are accidents, I don't think the other party will guess that I would still have such a backup arrangement. Don't worry. As long as you do as I say, nothing will happen. Even if the plan fails in the end, you can all still retreat in one piece. I believe that in this world, no one is more stable than me. Seeing that Zhuang Yangbing had said so much, the cultivators did not say anything else. With such a complete plan and so many arrangements, they felt that their plan this time would definitely be perfectly realized. Thinking of this, the camp sounded cheerful again, and the drunkenness scene returned. Moon Mountain Pass, inside the main camp of the guards. Director Sir, are we really going to do this? After hearing Lu Yuan's arrangements, Zheng Luan, Lion, Ape and the others still felt that he was making a mountain out of a molehill. If one had to describe Lu Yuan's arrangement this time, that would be Lu Yuan had considered the worst situation and an even worse situation than it. Then, made many arrangements based on the scenarios. The so-called worst-case scenario was something that would only happen with a small probability. A situation that was worse than the worst was undoubtedly the smallest of the smallest possibility. He had made specific plans in advance for such situation that was almost impossible to happen. In the eyes of Zheng Luan and the others, this was simply inconceivable. They had never expected that there would be someone in this world who could be so stable. Facing their doubts, Lu Yuan calmly replied, everyone, it's fine if some of these things don't happen. But once they happen, if we don't prepare countermeasures in advance, we will only miss the last chance to turn the tables. I, Lu Yuan, have an average cultivation and aptitude. There are countless disciples within the sect who are stronger than me. But do you know why I ended up becoming the new director of the Devil Slayers division? Why? Because I have an advantage that other disciples don't have. That is stability. Others will only consider the worst-case scenario, but I, Lu Yuan, will always consider a scenario worse than the worst-case scenario. Only by considering all these problems can our plans truly be foolproof. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Zheng Luan and the rest did not know what to say. Indeed, ordinary people could not be as stable as Lu Yuan, so stable that it makes people a little afraid. If there was a grade for stability, they felt that Lu Yuan was definitely among the top. There was absolutely no one in this world who was more stable than this person in front of them. Chapter 98. 98. No one can be more stable than me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 98. No one can be more stable than me. Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio Night, Moon Mountain Pass. Kill them. Following that, the sounds of intense fighting rang out once again in the pass. The devilish army of the Liang Kingdom had chosen to launch a fierce siege at night. The huge city wall had once again turned into a huge slaughterhouse, filled with the smell of blood and death. Just as everyone's attention was drawn to the battlefield, 10 figures flew quietly into the pass under the cover of the night. While flying, a cultivator from the Shuang sect could not help but say, "Don't you think Senior Brother Zhuang is making a mountain out of a molehill? Our operation this time is so secretive. How could it be easily exposed?" Another cultivator from the Shuang sect immediately retorted, "Shut up. It's never wrong to be careful. Senior Brother Zhuang is doing this for our own good. After all, having more tricks up our sleeves means we'll be safer. Don't forget, this is Qingyun sect's territory. If we are really left here, no one will be able to save us." Since he had already said so, that cultivator from Shuang sect did not continue saying anything else. He was just complaining just now, but he did not really think that these methods were bad. Just as they were halfway through the mountain range, they suddenly discovered several figures in front, stopping them. The ones who stopped them were 5 innate stage martial artists who could fly. In the mountain range of the Moon Mountain Pass, they encountered 5 patrolling innate stage martial artists. This situation was undoubtedly beyond their expectations. The 5 innate stage martial artists stopped them and asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" In the face of the 5 innate stage martial artists' questions, a Shuang sect cultivator seemed to have been prepared and directly stepped out of the crowd. "Who are we? We're Foundation Establishment Stage disciples of the Qingyun sect. Right now, we have something important to report to the sect leader. Why are you stopping us?" Lion.ape walked out of the crowd. He did not fully believe what they said and said coldly, "Since you're Qingyun sect disciples, do you have proof?" The so-called proof was actually something similar to a practitioner's token. Not only did such a token contain a special array, but it also contained the divine soul of a Qingyun sect disciple. Therefore, once the token holder died, the divine soul within the token would be shattered, causing the token to be destroyed. The confidentiality method was extremely high, and it was very difficult to forge. Under the gaze of the 5 innate stage martial artists, including Lion.ape, the 10 Shuang sect disciples took out the Qingyun token of a Foundation Establishment Stage disciple and activated the array within. Seeing the light emitted by the token, Lion.ape and the others immediately hesitated. These guys. They really seem to be Qingyun sect disciples. The Shuang sect cultivators heaved an internal sigh of relief when they saw the change in the expressions of Lion.ape and the others. Fortunately, before they came, Senior Brother Zhuang Yangbing had considered the possibility of them encountering Qingyun sect disciples. Therefore, he took out the precious Qingyun tokens for them so that they could disguise themselves as Qingyun sect disciples when they encountered such a situation. The reason why these Qingyun tokens were precious was that to make these Qingyun tokens work, firstly, they could not let the Qingyun sect disciples die. Secondly, they could not let these disciples go too far. This meant that there were 10 Qingyun sect disciples in the Devilish Way camp. It was guaranteed that these 10 tokens could be used normally. The 10 Qingyun sect disciples who were detained were originally not at the Foundation Establishment stage but at the Qi Cultivation stage. After they were captured by the Shuang sect, they were forced to advance to the Foundation Establishment stage with a secret technique to achieve the current situation. "Since you've already seen our tokens, why aren't you letting us in quickly?" If you delay our important matters, can you bear the responsibility? BDNVL them facing 10 aggressive Qinyan sect disciples, Lion, Ape recalled Lu Yuan's words. Lion.Ape, if you encounter several suspicious people during your patrol this time, you must stop them and not easily believe their nonsense. Lu Yuan had urged him. Even if the other party said that he was a Qinyan sect disciple and took out the corresponding proof, you cannot believe it. This was because the devilish way cultivators might have the means to disguise themselves as Qinyan sect disciples. Therefore, when you find suspicious people, report them to me immediately and stall them. Lion.Ape remembered Lu Yuan's orders and had sent someone to report in advance after discovering these 10 people. Therefore, currently, he was only stalling for time. Thinking of this, Lion.Ape began to think about what he should do to delay these people. This was because comparing the combat strength of both sides, their side only had 5 innate stage martial artists. Ordinarily, 2 innate stage martial artists were required to deal with a foundation establishment stage cultivator, not to mention that they were outnumbered. When the few Shuiyang sect cultivators saw that Lion.Ape and the others had no intention of letting them go, Zhuang Yanbing's words surfaced in their minds. Junior brothers, if the other party still doesn't let you in after you take out your tokens, that means that someone in the Qinyan sect has already suspected that we might disguise ourselves as Qinyan sect disciples to enter Moon Mountain Pass. Zhuang Yanbing had said. Therefore, at this moment, you have to come up with a reason that will make the other party unable to delay. Thinking of this, the disciples of the Shuiyang sect stopped hesitating. How long do you want to delay us? Look at what this is. As he spoke, the Shuiyang sect disciple took out another item. When Lion.Ape saw the item in the hands of the Shuiyang sect cultivator, he was shocked. That was because that was the token of a Qinyan sect core formation stage elder. We are under the orders of the inner sect elder and have something urgent to tell the sect leader. See this elder token. Quickly move aside. Under normal circumstances, Lion.Ape would definitely have moved aside. But at this moment, he recalled what Lu Yuan had said to him. Lion.Ape, these devilish way cultivators always had strange methods. If they want to disguise themselves as Qinyan sect disciples, they'll most likely forge our sect's Qinyan token. If they could really do this, they might even be able to forge the token of a core formation stage elder. Therefore, if the other party insisted on not saying what they want to do and only uses the token to force you to retreat, then you will hold them back until I come. Thinking of this, Lion.Ape seemed to have taken a pill of reassurance and replied very firmly, My lords, please wait for a moment. The current battle is intense. We are also following orders. In just a few minutes, our director will arrive personally. After he has confirmed that there are no mistakes, he will let you leave. Seeing that the Lion.Ape did not let them leave even after all they did, the leading Shuiyang sect cultivator was dumbfounded. You have verified our identities and we have shown you the Elder's token. Why aren't you letting us go yet? You're just an innate stage martial artist, aren't you afraid of offending us? Had they not been worried that a battle here would attract the attention of the cultivators in the nearby Moon Mountain Pass, the Shuiyang sect cultivators might have already attacked. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, the Shuiyang sect cultivators once again recalled what senior brother Zhuang Yangbing had told them. Junior brothers, if the other party still doesn't choose to let you in after seeing the Elder's token, that would mean that they might have guessed that we can forge tokens. At this point, don't hesitate and retreat. Thinking of this, the few of them exchanged looks and made a decision. However, just as they were about to turn around and escape, a voice came from the side. Fellow practitioners, where are you going? The Shuiyang sect cultivators turned around and saw a man wearing a white mask. Without them knowing, he had flown behind them and blocked their way. This person was none other than Lu Yuan. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was blocking their way, the Shuiyang sect cultivators immediately had a bad feeling. Senior brother Zhuang Yangbing, didn't you say that no one in this world is more stable than you? A Shuiyang sect cultivator thought to himself. But why was the situation before them seem so strange? In the Devilish Way camp. Senior Brother Zhuang, why didn't you let us go to the Great Xia Kingdom with Senior Brother Yi and the others earlier? Instead, you made us wait for 2 hours before we set off. Looking at the 5 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators beside him, Zhuang Yangbing smiled and said, I asked you all to set off 2 hours later because I wanted to make more preparations. I'm doing this to prevent anyone in the Qingyun sect from guessing my plan. But even if he guessed part of my plan, he would never have thought that I would arrange for another group of people to enter the Great Xia Kingdom after Junior Brother Yi and the others. We have to always plan for the worst and make arrangements accordingly. This is why I am the senior brother and you all are the junior brothers. All right, it's about time. You can set off. Yes, sir. Zhuang Yangbing smiled proudly as he watched the second batch of Foundation Establishment stage cultivators fly towards the Moon Mountain Pass. With such a thorough plan, it was unlikely that there would be any more problems. Unless there is someone in this world who is more stable than me and can consider so many scenarios in a row and come up with countermeasures. Otherwise, my plan would have been flawless and there would have been no possibility of failure. As for whether there was anyone more stable than him in this world, Zhuang Yangbing felt that it was impossible. He was already stable to such an extent, how could there be anyone more stable than him? Zhuang Yangbing laughed proudly as he thought about the benefits he would reap after his plan succeeded. How could a group of inflexible people who adhered to the old rules understand the many backup plans that he had arranged? Just wait to be played within the palm of my hands. Kakik. Chapter 99. 99, Array Formation, Painting the Earth as a You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 99. Array Formation, Painting the Earth as a Prison Translator. Nyo.bo Studio Editor. Nyo.bo Studio inside Moon Mountain Pass. Lu Yuan looked at the 10 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators in front of him and decisively used the system to check their interface. No matter where you come from, take my great detection technique first. Liyueru, Cultivation. Foundation Establishment Stage Level 5, Cultivation Technique. Blood Soul Spell, Foundation Establishment Chapter. Jiao 1, Cultivation. Foundation Establishment Stage Level 3, Cultivation Technique. Blood Soul Spell, Foundation Establishment Chapter. As expected, these guys are a big problem. Not only did they cultivate cultivation techniques exclusive to the Shuiyang sect, the Blood Soul spell, but their cultivation level had also reached the Foundation Establishment stage. Evidently, they had come prepared. Due to the cultivation technique in Shuiyang sect, it was not particularly difficult to reach the Foundation Establishment stage. However, Foundation Establishment stage cultivators were still Foundation Establishment stage cultivators. They were still much stronger than Qi cultivation stage cultivators. Therefore, when these 10 Foundation Establishment stage cultivators gathered together, they could still form a considerable destructive force. Once these cultivators passed through the Moon Mountain Pass and entered the Great Xia Kingdom borders, that would undoubtedly have a huge impact on the citizens of the Great Xia Kingdom. However, although the cultivation level of these people was not bad, they still could not pose a threat to Lu Yuan. Looking at the few people in front of him, Lu Yuan directly spoke, cultivators of Shuiyang sect have gone through the trouble to come here. If we don't fulfill the etiquette of a host, it would be too rude. Lion. Ape, I'm here. Do it. Yes, sir. As soon as Lu Yuan gave the order, Lion.Ape and the others no longer hesitated and instantly rushed towards Li Yueru and the others. Seeing that Lu Yuan had just arrived and managed to point out their true identities with great certainty, Li Yueru was shocked. This was because he felt that their disguises should have been flawless. In the end, not only did they not fool Lion.Ape and the others, even Lu Yuan was certain that they were impersonating Qingyun sect disciples with just a simple glance at them. Could it be that our disguise, was it really that bad? Li Yueru thought to himself. Also, where did see through our flaws? Shouldn't you tell us what our weakness is and how you saw through us? How could he act so recklessly and attack without saying anything? When Lu Yuan saw the 70% shock, 20% unwillingness, and 10% puzzlement in Li Yueru and the other's eyes, he laughed secretly. Play by the rules. What I, the steady Lu Yuan, pay attention to is not playing by the rules. If I play by the rules, wouldn't it be easy for you to figure out my plans? Even though he had already seen through the identities of Li Yueru and the others, however, in terms of combat strength, the Xueyang sect seemed to have the upper hand. After all, Lu Yuan's side only had 1 foundation establishment stage cultivator and 5 innate stage martial artists. Against them were 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators. On the surface, their combat strength was naturally far inferior to the other party. It was a simple arithmetic problem. Of course, this was only on the surface. For a stable monster like Lu Yuan, if he didn't have at least 98% confidence, it was impossible for him to appear in his main body. Lu Yuan's appearance could only mean that he had absolute confidence. Now that the situation had developed to this point, Li Yueru decided to directly shed all pretense of cordiality. You want to stop us with just a few innate stage martial artists and a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Aren't you underestimating us, Xueyang sect? Fellow practitioners of Xueyang sect. Let this group of ignorant fellows see what Xueyang sect is made of. With Li Yueru's roar, the 10 cultivators of the Xueyang sect instantly charged forward. As the blood soul spell was cast, large amounts of blood began to emerge from the bodies of the 10 Xueyang sect cultivators. The special blood mixed with soul power quickly dyed their robes red, making them look like they were wearing bloody robes. And this blood-red robe was not as simple as just changing its appearance. In a sense, they were also a defensive divine ability exclusive to the cultivators of Xueyang sect. The blood-soul spell of the Xueyang sect cultivators were far more than just the blood robe. Roar. Accompanied by a beast-like low growl, the appearance of a Xueyang sect cultivator began to change drastically. Blood-colored fish scales appeared on the cultivator's face, and his cheeks continued to crack, eventually turning into blood-colored gills. Other than that, more fish-like organs such as fin, fishtail and so on, appeared on the person's body. In an instant, the Xueyang sect cultivator, who was originally in human form, became half-devil. This was one of the characteristics of the blood-soul spell. Blood demon transformation. The so-called blood demon transformation was a special divine ability produced by the cultivators of the Xueyang sect after they absorbed the bloodline of a specific demon. It was not an easy task to complete the blood demon transformation. This was because the process of refining demon blood was much more difficult than the ordinary process of eating it. It was comparable to changing one's blood. But at the same time, once the refinement was successful, not only would the cultivator possess the special talent of that type of demon they absorbed, but they would also be able to display the unique state of blood demon transformation. Therefore, the way Xueyang sect measured a disciple's potential was neither based on the disciple's comprehension or the disciple's spiritual root aptitude. Instead, it was measured based on what kind of demon bloodline they had refined. For example, Yang Xiujia, the young master of Xueyang sect, had refined a young golden rainbow bird. An adult golden rainbow bird could reach the nascent soul stage cultivation. Therefore, as long as Yang Xiujia continued to cultivate smoothly, he was likely to become a nascent soul stage expert. This was also the reason why he could become the young master of Xueyang sect. In a sense, the cultivators of Xueyang sect were very similar to the bloodline warlocks in fantasy novels. The Xueyang sect cultivators obviously did not have such a good opportunity. Most of them had only refined foundation establishment stage demons. As the 10 Xueyang sect cultivators completed their blood demon transformation, they began to show their ferocious side. The 10 blood-colored demons quickly surrounded Lion-Ape and the innate stage martial artists. They looked like they wanted to tear them apart on the spot. However, what puzzled the Shuang sect cultivators was that when faced with such a huge gap in strength, not only were these 5 innate stage martial artists not afraid, but they also appeared very calm. Even Lu Yuan, who was at the back, did not seem to be in a hurry to make a move. The Shuang sect cultivators had a bad feeling about his calm appearance. Could it be that these guys think that they can take us down for sure? They thought. They were right. Today, Lu Yuan was really going to take them down for sure. An incomplete landscape painting suddenly appeared in Lu Yuan's hand. Under the astonished gazes of Li Yueru and the others, the landscape painting in Lu Yuan's hand slowly opened. As the landscape painting spread out, a mysterious array immediately spread out with Lu Yuan's body as the core. In the blink of an eye, the Shuang sect cultivators were surrounded within. Even Lion.Ape and the others were covered within this array. Divine ability, painted world. Li Yueru's pupils constricted as she sensed the change in her surroundings. Damn it, this Qingyun sect cultivator was actually an array master. Chapter 100. 100, Support First. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 100. Support First. Translator. Nyo-i.bo Studio Editor. Nyo-i.bo Studio. The reason why Li Yueru was so terrified was that he knew very well what the array masters represented. Even though array masters were not very strong individually, together with pharmacists, they were considered the combat base strength of cultivators. They were considered battle rookies and were very easy to deal with. However, similar to pharmacists who could refine various pills to increase their cultivation and assist in battle, array masters also had their unique traits. A single array master was easy to deal with. However, the situation would be completely different when many cultivators were protecting the array master. This was because array masters were best at such large-scale battles. They were a special group that could greatly increase the combat strength of the surrounding cultivators. As Lu Yuan used his divine ability, Painted World, Li Yueru and the other cultivators of Shuang sect soon discovered that their spiritual energy perception was compressed to an extremely low level in this array. Even the mobilization of spiritual energy became very difficult. In the past, one could mobilize their spiritual energy with just a fraction of their strength, but now they would need to spend 30% or 40% of their strength. In other words, the array had weakened their strength by 30% to 40%. And Lu Yuan's Earth Prison was naturally not as simple as weakening one's perception and the use of spiritual energy. For things like spiritual power, the more you have, the less others have. The spiritual energy that the Shuang sect cultivators lacked was naturally added to the Lion.Ape and the others. As a result, a single innate stage martial artist within the array could deal with 1 or 2 foundation establishment stage cultivators of the Shuang sect at the same time. Lion.Ape felt as if he had eaten a perfect tonic pill at this moment. Not only was his entire body filled with strength, but he could also control his inborn vitality more easily. Sensing the changes in himself, Lion.Ape instantly became confident. His lion-like hair was raised high, and his aura began to rise. Looking at the Shuang sect cultivators who were the closest to him, Lion.Ape immediately revealed a sinister smile. Then, he stomped on the air and charged at the other party like a furious lion. Faced with the ferocious attack of the Lion.Ape, the Shuang sect cultivator hurriedly defended himself. Almost at the instant he used his defensive divine ability, Lion.Ape had already raised the saber in his hand and slashed fiercely at the Shuang sect cultivator in front of him. Bang! Facing the full-powered slash of the Lion.Ape, the spiritual energy barrier of the Shuang sect cultivator was instantly broken and he was sent flying by the Lion.Ape. Lion.Ape obviously would not let him go just like that. He once again gave chase with a terrifying sonic boom. In just a few moments, the previously arrogant Shuang sect cultivator was suppressed by Lion.Ape. Fortunately, the Shuang sect cultivators still had the advantage in numbers. Seeing the lion-apes war-god-like performance, another Shuang sect cultivator immediately rushed over and had lion-ape sandwiched between them. Even with 1 against 2, lion-ape was still not at a disadvantage. The large saber in his hand was fierce and powerful, and it had a hint of a higher stage of martial arts. The same scene happened to the other innate stage martial artists. 5 innate stage martial artists were able to fight to a standstill against 10 foundation establishment stage cultivators within a short period of time. This was the frightening skill of an array master. Just as the two sides were fighting, Lu Yuan was also patiently observing the changes in the array. As this was the first time he used array divine ability, Lu Yuan was not particularly familiar with the use of arrays. Although he had thought that the arrays would be very useful, however, he did not expect such great effect in group battles. This also caused a brand new battle combination to appear in Lu Yuan's mind. For example, array plus fire cicada clone, array plus puppet, etc. Although his current array divine ability, Painted World, was temporarily unable to provide such a huge boost to the puppet, this did not mean that he could not do something similar in the future. Lu Yuan felt that in the future, he could try to trap the enemy in the array and then use the puppet to exhaust the other party to death. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Gosh, what kind of tactic was this? It was too disgusting and too wretched. But I loved such wretched tactics. Lu Yuan thought to himself. Just as Lu Yuan was indulging in his fantasies, a Shuang sect cultivator was accidentally slashed in the vital part by an innate stage martial artist. Ah! The saber slashed across the chest of the Shuang sect cultivator, instantly cutting his chest open. The inborn vitality covered on the saber entered his body through the wound, causing terrifying secondary damage to his body. However, the innate stage martial artists did not give up. He seized the opportunity to seriously injure the enemy. Then, he turned around and slashed the neck of the Shuang sect. Poof! As a head flew high into the air, the first death of a foundation establishment stage cultivator has appeared. The fallen foundation establishment stage cultivator was the weakest among the 10 cultivators of the Shuang sect. Therefore, his death was not something difficult to understand. What no one noticed was that after the death of this foundation establishment stage cultivator, his cultivation and divine soul was absorbed by the surrounding array and finally gathered at Lu Yuan's location. Ding! You have seriously performed the divine soul pill refinement technique once. The divine soul pill refinement technique proficiency has increased. Lu Yuan placed his hands behind his back, and 2 pellets suddenly appeared in his right hand. One was a blood chi pill and the other was a soul pill. This was the other use for Lu Yuan to cultivate array. That was, he could use the array to allow his divine soul pill refinement technique to cover the entire array. Once someone died in the array, Lu Yuan would be able to harvest a lot of divine souls and blood chi. In fact, even if the cultivators in the array did not die, Lu Yuan could still secretly absorb their divine souls and blood chi. Not only were his movements stealthy, but the effects were also surprisingly good. With the death of this foundation establishment stage cultivator, the cultivators of the Shuang sect also felt that they could not let this situation continue. If this continued, all of them would be exhausted to death here. The best way to resolve this situation was to crack the surrounding array. As for the best way to crack an array, it was definitely to get rid of the other party's array master. Thinking of this, Li Yueru made a decision. Junior brothers, don't hold back anymore. If we don't deal with that array master, none of us will be able to leave. Upon hearing Li Yueru's words, the surrounding Shuang sect cultivators immediately displayed their trump cards. Blood Soul Spell, Blood Ignition. After using the Blood Ignition divine ability, the cultivation of these Shuang sect cultivators increased by another level within a short period of time. It had almost wiped out the weakening effect of Lu Yuan's earth prison on them. In an instant, other than Li Yueru, 3 other Shuiyang sect cultivators also broke away from the innate stage martial artist they were fighting with and rushed toward Lu Yuan. For Foundation Establishment stage cultivators who had used the Blood Ignition divine ability had a huge advantage against a Foundation Establishment stage array master. It was impossible that they could not take him down. As they thought of Lu Yuan's disgusting actions after he cast the array formation, the few Shuiyang sect cultivators almost had fire busting out of their eyes with anger. At this moment, they wished they could tear Lu Yuan into pieces. Seeing that Lu Yuan was still standing there without moving, Li Yueru shouted, "Damned Xinyan cultivator, today shall be the day you die. Hand your life over." Lu Yuan looked at the few people rushing towards him and secretly laughed in his heart. Attacking the support before the main fight. You do have some intelligence. However, have you ever thought of a problem, that was, sometimes, the combat strength of a support might be the highest among the team.